In this video, I'm going to show you how to share your reflection document with your partner and also how to give feedback. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is go back to the classwork section and go down to this assignment, Reader Writer Identity Reflection. When you click on it, it's going to obviously look different from mine. I have the teacher version where I can see everyone's. You'll have a button somewhere over here that says Unsubmit. You'll need to do that first so that you're able to edit your document. It's totally fine because I've already marked off who turned it in on time, so it's not a big deal to click Unsubmit. So go ahead and do that first. Then, once your document is open, let's just pretend that this is mine. I've just done this as a quick example. Of course, yours will be more complete. You'll have the boxes filled in, and you'll have a whole reflection down here. Again, mine just looks like this because I wanted to create an example. Once you've got yours open, you're going to share it with your seat partner. To do that, go up to the Share button. And the first thing you want to do is make sure that the person can edit it. They'll need to do this in order to make suggestions and comments. So make sure you've clicked Can Edit. I'm going to share it with Mr. Sarek just as an example. If you just start typing in someone's name, their email address will pop up. So you don't even need to know their email address. You just need to know their name. As you're sharing it with your partner, if you need to just quietly lean over and whisper, ask them how to spell their name or what their last name is, because there might be multiple people with their first name, just do that really quietly, quickly, and then move on. Go ahead and make sure it says notify people down here. If I uncheck this, that means Mr. Sarek is not going to get an email that I've sent this to him, and it'll be harder for him to find. So you want to make sure this is checked. Go ahead and click send. Now Mr. Sarek is going to get in his email box a notification that I've shared a document with him. He'll be able to click on it and see it. You can tell that someone else is looking in their document, in your document, because there will be an icon of them that pops up here. So once your partner has shared their document with you, you'll go back to your email tab. You'll see that they shared the document with you. You'll go and click into it. Now let's pretend that this document here is your partner's document. Again, I know this doesn't look exactly like the document will, but we're just going to pretend this is what your partner has. The first thing to do will be to read through their reflection. I just typed a very short reflection here as an example. Go ahead and take a few seconds to read through it. Pause the video if you need to finish it. All right, again, pause if you need to. We're going to move on now. Make sure that you've read it. You want to give your partner at least one piece of positive feedback, something they did well, and one piece of constructive feedback. So one thing I noticed they did well is they mentioned a specific person who helped them to like or dislike reading, which is one of the guiding questions. So I'm just going to highlight the part that I want to comment on, and then this plus button will pop up, and it'll let me add a comment. So I'm going to say, good job mentioning a specific person who helped you. Well, I guess they haven't said like or disliked reading, so I'm just going to say who helped you learn to read. This is in relation, of course, to guiding question number 1, who or what helped you to like or dislike reading. They've mentioned a specific person. That's something that they did well. Now, something I'm noticing that they still need to work on is they haven't really expressed many specific memories. I noticed, for example, here, a lot of things happened that made learning to read really challenging. Well, what was it that happened? So I'm just going to highlight that, add a comment here, and I'm going to add a question that will be a constructive piece of feedback to help them going. So I'm going to say, this would be a good place to expand more. What specific memories do you have about learning to read? How were these events challenging? So you'll notice here, I haven't said anything super negative. I haven't said like you did a bad job here or this is really poorly written. Really, I'm doing it in an encouraging way that's going to help them. So you want to make sure that even in your constructive comments, you're still being really positive. And the best thing to do is ask follow-up questions like we practiced before. So you can see these questions will help the reader know what direction to go in. I'll click comment. So you need at least one positive comment, something they did well, and one constructive comment. You are, of course, welcome to do more of each, but you need to have at least one of each. Something else I'm going to show you is how to leave suggestions on a document. This is really important because you might notice small things that the writer needs to change, for example, errors in conventions, but I don't want you to just go and click and start editing stuff because that might feel bad. If you've put a lot of effort into writing something, you probably don't want someone else to just come up in your business and change it. So I'm going to direct your attention up here to the right corner of the document. You'll see this pencil that says editing mode. That means that if I go and click in the document, I can delete stuff, I can type it, I can change it. But again, we don't want to just go in and change someone's writing. So we're going to go from editing mode to suggesting mode. Suggesting mode is cool because let's say I notice, for example, here there shouldn't be a space between the letter D and the period. I can go and now make a suggestion so that I haven't actually changed their writing, but I made a suggestion about what they should do. I'll make a couple more. They should have an apostrophe here, an apostrophe here, a period there. This should be a capital I, and so forth. Now, when they go back through, they can either accept my suggestion or they can reject it. So maybe someone makes a suggestion, you realize like, oh, they actually got that incorrect. I don't want to accept it. It's up to them, and it's a better way to edit someone's piece. So they'll be able to go back later, and let's say they're like, oh yeah, that does need a capital E. They can click check, and then it'll fix it for them. So make sure if you're changing anything that you are in suggesting mode. Once you have made any suggestions that you need to make and you've made at least 2 comments, then you're ready to look at the rubric. I'm showing you mine on the computer just so it can be in the video. Obviously yours is in paper. First you want to write the writer's first and last name up here. If you forget their last name, it's going to be back in the document at the top here. There are 2 categories to grade them in. First is the reflection component, and second is conventions. As a reminder, conventions are things like capitalization, punctuation, spelling. Up at the reflection, you'll see there are a few components to think about. First, you just want to think, has the writer answered all of the guiding questions? So if they have not answered all of them, there are 7 total that you need to answer, and then you could answer up to 9. So if they've answered maybe 3 or less, then they're automatically going to get an incomplete because they just haven't finished it. So you need to think, have they answered all the guiding questions? If not, they're coming down to an incomplete. Remember, the guiding questions are in your brainstorm packet on the page that says Reader Writer Identity Outline. So you'll want to have that out in front of you. If they have answered all the guiding questions, then they're either going to get a check plus or a check. If they've answered most of the guiding questions but not all, then they'll get a check minus. Then you want to think, have they really included specific details? So if they have included specific details for each of their paragraphs and their details that actually support what they're trying to say, then they could get a check plus. You also need to make sure they're telling a logical story. A logical story just means there's a clear beginning, middle, and end, and the story makes sense. So if at the beginning of their reflection they talk about how they grew up and they really loved reading and they give all these examples, and then all of a sudden in the last paragraph they're suddenly talking about how they hate reading and they never liked it, that wouldn't really be logical. The pieces don't fit together. So if they answered all the questions and it's logical and they included specific details in all their paragraphs, you're going to highlight check plus. If they have answered all the questions and the story is logical, but you feel like they could add some more details, they haven't really added enough to each paragraph, you might give them a check. And then again, if they either haven't answered all the questions or the story doesn't really make sense or they haven't given any specific details, choose the check minus. Down in conventions, you're going to think, how many times did you see them making errors? And it might be helpful to look back at how many suggestions you made. If someone has a few typos, like maybe there's 1 or 2 times they forgot to capitalize something, or 1 or 2 spelling errors, 1 or 2 punctuation errors, they can still earn a check plus as long as it was only 1 or 2 errors. If they have more than 1 or 2 errors, that's going to bump them down. So let's say you notice 4 different times that they have capitalization errors and 5 different words that they misspelled, but their punctuation was really strong, they're going to get in the check minus because this says demonstrates few or no errors in one of the following. So you would highlight this part and then highlight punctuation because that is the part that they didn't have errors in. If you feel like they did well in punctuation, but there were just like a ton of errors in capitalization, you could also highlight this to show them, hey, there were noticeable errors in this section. If you felt like they did well in everything, there were only a couple typos, you would say few or no errors in all 3 of the following, highlight that. And then if they did the advanced prompt, if they have a metaphor and it's underlined, you can circle yes. If they don't have a metaphor that's underlined, go ahead, circle no. Once you're done giving feedback on the rubric and you've added comments to this document, go ahead and just make sure their name is written at the top of the rubric, silently place it on their desk, and then if they have already given you feedback, you're ready to move on